Hook. A knock on the door can shatter the quietest evening. For one person, enjoying a simple dinner with family, that knock brought a confrontation they never saw coming. On their doorstep stood a neighbor, a new mother, with a complaint that felt more like an accusation. Their dog's constant barking was making her life unbearable. But here's where the story takes a turn. The dog in question was sound asleep at their feet. Our storyteller had recently found a place to call home, a one-bedroom apartment that had sat empty for quite some time. The move was a fresh start, and they quickly settled into a comfortable rhythm. A key part of that rhythm was their companion, a 2-year-old golden doodle. They worked from home, which meant the two were almost always together. The dog was a good dog, calm, trained, and mostly quiet. Like any dog, he would occasionally offer a few sharp barks if he heard a strange noise in the hallway, a delivery at a neighbor's door, or footsteps that were just a little too heavy. But these moments were brief. Our storyteller was always there to issue a quick, quiet correction, and the barking would cease almost as soon as it began. Life was peaceful. They had lived in a previous apartment for 2 years with their dog and had never received a single complaint. They were considerate neighbors, even going so far as to have their husband add an extra layer of insulation around their front door to minimize any noise escaping into the shared hallway. They believed in being part of a community, and in a building that was proudly pet-friendly, where dogs likely outnumbered people. They felt they had found the right place. Then came the knock. It was around 7 in the evening. Dinner was on the table, and our storyteller was mid-conversation with their sisters, who were over for a visit. The knock was firm, insistent. When they opened the door, they found their next-door neighbor. They recognized her as the woman with the newborn. Her expression was not friendly. Without preamble, she began. She spoke of their dog's constant barking. She claimed it had been going on for weeks, a relentless noise that was constantly disturbing her newborn's precious sleep. She looked at our storyteller with an air of superiority and added that she, too, had 2 dogs. But her dogs, she explained, had been properly educated not to bark. The implication was clear. Our storyteller was failing as a pet owner. Our storyteller stood there, completely baffled. The accusation felt untethered from reality. At that very moment, their golden doodle was lying on the floor by the dining table, not making a sound. He hadn't been barking before the knock, or for hours prior. Since they worked from home, they were acutely aware of their dog's habits. Constant barking was a wild exaggeration. He slept most of the day, enjoyed long walks, and had regular playtime. He was a happy, well-cared-for animal, not a neglected, nuisance barker. Trying to keep the peace, they offered a measured response. They said they would certainly do their best to manage the noise. But they also felt compelled to address the bigger picture. I can hear your baby crying through the walls quite often, they explained, not as an attack, but as a point of fact. I've never complained, because I understand that's just part of apartment living. The sound insulation in this building isn't the best. It was a simple statement of truth. Babies cry. Dogs sometimes bark. In a building with thin walls, you hear your neighbors' lives. It's an unspoken contract of shared living spaces. You offer grace for their noise, and they, in turn, offer grace for yours. The neighbor did not seem to appreciate this perspective. The conversation ended curtly, and she returned to her apartment, leaving our storyteller standing in their doorway, the warmth of their dinner party completely gone. In its place was a cold, creeping anxiety. The confrontation changed everything. Suddenly, their own home felt like hostile territory. They became hyper-aware of every tiny sound their dog made. A single woof at the mail carrier would send a jolt of panic through them. A playful growl during a game of tug-of-war made them glance nervously toward the shared wall. They found themselves shushing him for the smallest of noises, trying to preempt a complaint that might never come. They were walking on eggshells, tiptoeing around their own life, held hostage by the fear of another knock on the door. They began to piece together a theory. Their unit had been vacant for a long time before they moved in. It was possible the neighbor had become accustomed to absolute, uninterrupted silence on that side of her apartment. Their arrival, with the normal, ambient sounds of life, footsteps, music, a dishwasher running, and yes, the occasional bark, had shattered that artificial peace. What felt like a normal level of noise to our storyteller might have felt like an invasion to a neighbor used to nothing. They tried to empathize. They had never had a newborn. They couldn't fully grasp the bone-deep exhaustion, the frayed nerves, the desperation for just one solid hour of sleep. Perhaps, to a sleep-deprived new mother, a single bark at the wrong moment could feel like a sonic boom. But empathy had its limits. They were paying rent for a home they were now afraid to fully live in. The joy of their new apartment was being systematically drained away, replaced by a constant, low-grade dread. Verdict: this is a classic tale of apartment life, where thin walls amplify the friction between different lifestyles. On one side, you have a new mother, likely overwhelmed and sleep-deprived, for whom any external noise can feel like a personal affront. Her frustration is understandable, even if her approach was aggressive and her expectation of total silence was unrealistic. On the other side, you have a responsible pet owner living a normal life in a pet-friendly building. They are not negligent, in fact, they've been proactive in managing noise.